All right, Sandra, we put a panel together. General Jack Keane is with us, along with Dan Hoffman. Also joining us this hour is Brett Bruin. He served 12 years as a U.S. diplomat and as a former Obama White House Director of Global Engagement. And Brett, why don't we start with you, since you're new to the program this afternoon. We heard what Putin had to say. A lot of it was lamenting the fall of the Soviet Union, that they gave away too much, that Ukraine is a false entity that was created by the former communists. There are a lot of complaints about Ukraine and its treatment toward Russia ever since Yanukovych left in 2014 under pressure. I mean, Putin even going so far as to say that Russia will do everything it can to punish those involved in the fire in Odessa in 2014. And that's when pro-Ukrainian protesters attacked a building in which there were pro-Russian Ukrainians, burned the building and killed 30 people inside. I mean, how do you punish people responsible for a fire in Odessa unless you're planning on being in the entire country?
Yeah, it is really worrying what we heard from Vladimir Putin this afternoon. I think in a lot of ways he's doubling down on his threats and clearly trying to read off a laundry list of grievances and complaints. What I think is the key question looming over Washington right now is, how is President Biden going to respond? And up until now, what the administration has said is we'll slap on some more economic sanctions. But quite frankly, after what we heard from Vladimir Putin this afternoon, that is not enough. He has clearly not been deterred by what we've already done, and there are some decently strong economic sanctions in place already after his invasion of Crimea and Luhansk and Donetsk in 2014. So the administration is going to have to put more on the table. They're going to have to stiffen the spines of our European allies, because this simply cannot stand, John.
Very interesting. Dan, we caught up with you as we were beginning the show, 1 o'clock Eastern time. You've been able to digest a lot of what we've learned since then, especially from the words of Vladimir Putin. Your thoughts?
So what I'm waiting for now is the response from Ukraine. They're the one whose country is being dismembered. You know, it started back in 2014 when Putin annexed Crimea and launched the war in Donbass, and now Vladimir Putin is saying that the Donbass should be an autonomous republic of Russia, and they should have their independence recognized. The question for me is, how does Ukraine respond? There have been great divisions between the Biden administration and President Zelensky over the fact that we didn't implement preemptive sanctions that might have taken a step towards inducing Russia to withdraw some of those troops, or perhaps not to take the step that Vladimir Putin took today. The question for me is whether Ukraine plans to fight for this territory. And I'm sure that's something that our team on the ground in Lviv, unfortunately not in Kyiv, is going to be looking at with the government of Ukraine. Frankly, this is not a time for our embassy to have departed Kyiv and moved to Lviv. They should have remained in Kyiv to do their diplomatic work. It's going to be far more difficult for us right now to manage our affairs with Ukraine, being so far to the west and really out of the loop with all of the government officials with whom we need to engage at this very perilous moment.
General Keane, let's just bring you in here and run a couple of things by you. Putin saying if Ukraine gets weapons of mass destruction, the global situation will change drastically. We cannot ignore this. He says Ukraine is flooded with Western weapons in recent months. Also saying nuclear weapons amount to preparation for an attack on Russia. He wants to keep Ukraine from becoming a threat to Russia vis-a-vis NATO. Read the tea leaves for us, General. Where do you think this is headed?
Well, I think it's clear. I mean, I read through, some of the analysis and the snippets that came out of the speech on Reuters, and it's clear he's building a case not to just occupy the Donbass region or even build a land bridge to the east to Crimea. He's building a case to occupy Ukraine. I mean, that's what that whole speech was about. Certainly not just a limited military attack to secure much of the territory he already owns and expand it. And I think that was clearly identified by the United States intelligence services, and I agree with the Biden administration in releasing that information to take away Putin's element of surprise and also to take away any sense of legitimacy here by us, the United States, conducting our own information campaign against him. And I think we correctly identified that his strategic intent here is to take control of Ukraine. And I think that speech is really all about that. I mean, it's dripping with the emotion that he feels personally about Ukraine. And that is what Sandra so correctly identified in the July 12 5,000-word memo, much of it penned by himself, according to sources in his own language. And secondly, while Ukraine has ideological overtones to it, it's a democracy, and he doesn't want that, certainly, and he doesn't want that kind of impact on his own people. It also has geopolitical issues because he wants Ukraine to look to Russia and not to the West. But really, when it gets down to what he is talking about here, is that Ukraine never should have been separated from the Soviet Union. It is a part of Russia, and I'm taking back the land that is rightfully ours. That is what this is about. I believe it will be a phased operation. We'll see if that unfolds. It'll start in a very minimal, limited way, but it will likely expand over a series of days. And I agree with you, John. I mean, we're waiting to see what the Biden administration is going to do now. They have forecasted this correctly, and they deserve credit for that. But now it's up to them. What are they going to do about it? We already know for a fact that they've squandered many of the opportunities that were afforded to them, because this began in March, so our viewers recall, with the 90,000 occupation last March of 2021, when they encroached on Ukraine's border, and we did nothing. And this has been going on all that time, and I thought it was a test then. 90 days into the Biden administration, they were preoccupied with a domestic program and also with Afghanistan. Decision to pull out of Afghanistan made in April. After that fiasco, and I think Putin looked at that, as we've said so many times, as fundamental weakness on the part of the United States and NATO, he came back and doubled those forces in the fall leading up to where we are right now at the end of February.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.